getting paid hourly or having a salary while apprenticing to learn how to pierce. Pros and Cons by a Piercer, Season 2, Episode number 53. For those who are new to the channel, first off, welcome to the channel. Hope you're enjoying the videos here at the Body Piercing and Tattooing channel, but you may not know who I am. My name is DaVo. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. I own and operate the Axiom Body Piercing Studio, located inside Skin Kitchen Tattoo here in the fabulous city of Des Moines, Iowa. So what I'm going to do is give you pros and cons of this. And why this comes up is there's kind of the traditional way to apprentice was you paid some money to somebody, they took you on as an apprentice, you spent time observing, they supervised you as you went through the process of learning to do each piercing and helped teach you the art one-on-one. And during that period of time, you don't receive any payment until you get to a point where they feel comfortable with you piercing on your own. That's kind of the standard that I've kept for years and has worked best for me. There are some studios that do this. Oh yeah, we'll hire you to pierce. And basically, when they hire you to pierce, they pay you an hourly salary. You're required to show up at this time and that time, etc., and etc. So what I'm talking about here is the advantages and disadvantages of going into that situation where you're learning to pierce but also getting paid an hourly wage or a salary, just like you would if you worked at a grocery store or hardware store or Fortune 500 company. Let's get into the pros. Number one, guaranteed income. As you can imagine, with the more traditional form of apprenticeship, there is no guaranteed income. In fact, you're probably going to need to have a second job, which is going to take away from the time that you can actually spend learning to pierce. It can also add additional stress to your life and limit your free time. If you're getting an hourly wage, there's a huge advantage of you're making enough money to support yourself, and you're in a situation where you're not worrying about the next paycheck paying for this or keeping a roof over your head or food in your belly or getting to your next job. Number two, it creates a situation where the studio is invested in you. If they're paying you to train you, their long-term goal is to have you working in their studio and making them money. So they're invested from that standpoint of paying you kind of to do pretty much maybe some menial task here and there, but for the most part, just stand around and watch for, in some cases, maybe a couple months. Then after that, they're going to spend additional time babysitting you with your mentor. I guess babysitting is a bad way of putting that. Your mentor supervising you, which is going to take away from when they are piercing, which limits the amount of clients that are coming through the door and they can take care of. So they're more invested in what's going to happen because they're paying you for all of this. Number three, withholding tax, unemployment, and taxes. Also having that employment history. If they're paying you an hourly wage, and they're required under state law in most cases and federal law, and I'm not sure how it works outside the United States, to withhold part of your income for taxes. They're also going to be required to pay unemployment insurance. And that's something you're not going to have if you do it in a more traditional apprenticeship, because basically for the essence you have no income for the beginning part of it, and even after that you're usually working as a subcontractor, which means you're responsible for all of that. That's going to be 100% falls on your shoulders. The only thing that studio is going to do is at the end of the year hand you a 1099 and say, yep, you owe taxes, have fun. Number four, it would fulfill certain requirements under federal law in the United States that the employer would be required to help you get cheaper health insurance. If you're working as a subcontractor, that's completely your responsibility. They don't have to do anything. Though there are kind of loopholes in it, if they're a small enough studio and don't employ that many people, they may not be required anyway. Number five, good old-fashioned overtime. You have a set schedule. You get paid for that period of time. If you exceed that, under some laws, they're required to pay you additional income or increase your income when you're working overtime. If you're a flat-out subcontractor, 1099, the whole 9 yards, they don't have to. You're getting paid by the job. So if you do 10 piercings, you get paid for 10 piercings. even if it takes 15 hours to do those 10 piercings. So that's another advantage. Now let's move on to the cons, the disadvantages, things you may not like. Number one, smaller studios that are more specialized or more established may not be able to afford to pay you an hourly wage, or they may see it as a huge hassle. They've got to suddenly pay unemployment insurance. They've got to file for W-2s. They've got to do all this additional work to keep you as an employee. So it turns into a much more complicated situation. They may have to pay an accountant to make sure it's done correctly. Then they have to deal with payroll and payroll tax and everything else that goes along with paying somebody an hourly salary. With basically subcontractors, they don't have to deal with any of that. They just basically supervise you, hire you for the job, and that's it. They're not responsible for any of this other stuff. So what I'm getting at is the small boutique kind of, that master guy or gal or whoever that works by themselves, that has just, you're like, this is the person I need to teach me. Maybe in a situation where taking on an hourly employee, especially during slow times of the year, is something they financially can't do in supporting themselves. So you do need to consider that you're kind of putting yourself in a box in a situation where your options might be limited. Number two, because they're paying you an hourly salary, they're not going to let you sit around a lot and hang out and kind of get the vibe for the shop. They're going to put you to work all the time. They cannot afford to just have you sit around. So yes, during a normal apprenticeship, even under the traditional level, you are going to be required to do things like mop floors and maybe answer the phone occasionally. But when you're in a situation where they're paying you money to do things all day long, you're going to be doing things all day long. And if it's better for them and more profitable for them, they're probably going to push you into a lot of non-piercing related work, like sitting at the front counter for 5 hours of the day, while the piercer is back making money instead of observing them the whole time. Things like that, it just kind of creates that motivation factor of moving you into a more non-piercing existence. Number three, less independence. If you're in a situation where you're a subcontractor at a shop, you're basically promoting yourself. You are basically renting space and using their equipment to, in essence, make money. So you have a little bit more independence on how you do things. You might have an option of what type of jewelry that you want to buy in stock. You might have a lot more independence than you would have if you're getting paid hourly to be there. You have a lot more control over what's going on. Also with promotion, usually if I'm paying somebody $15 an hour to pierce, I'm going to be less likely or a little upset if they're constantly promoting themselves and not my studio. I want them to promote my studio in that situation. If they're a subcontractor, and especially if they're working during times where I'm not available, or you have a shop where they have pretty much their own share, I want them to be independent and promote themselves as much as they'd like and get in as many people as possible, because that benefits both of us. Now, if I'm paying them hourly, I'm going to be a little upset if they start just taking all the studio business. Number four, earning potential. Now, let's do a little math here. If you're making, just to keep it easy, $10 an hour and you work an 8-hour shift, that means you're entitled to $80 before taxes and everything else. If the average piercing in that studio is $100, like they make $100 off of pretty much every client, and you have, let's say, 16 clients in a day, then if you take a half an hour for each one of them, like I said, I want to make the math a little bit easier. So that means the shop has grossed $1,600 off of your work. Usually, in most cases, it's 40 to 50%. Personally, I stick at 50% because it's easy. So, in essence, my apprentice right now, if she did 16 piercings in an 8-hour period, is entitled to $800 before taxes, opposed to $80. Now, I would negotiate that and try to work in some type of, if you were on an hourly, of some type of a commission. But the reality is they are already paying you, and they're paying you when you're not working. So to them, it's like, well, that's what the job pays. That's exactly it, and you don't need any more money. So the earning potential is drastically affected, which goes back to the back to the independence. Is working as a subcontractor, you have the ability to promote yourself and get people into the studio to come to you, which gives you a lot more income and a lot more freedom. Number 5, since most of the places that I've encountered, maybe this has changed, that do pay hourly wage right at the beginning to train you to pierce, everything else. Usually most of the situations were street shops, basically the places that used to have all those $25 piercings, where volume is really, really important to them. They don't care about the quality. They don't care about the jewelry they stock. They don't care about the experience of the people getting pierced. All they care about is getting as many butts through the door and out the door on a regular basis. They don't care about education or any of that. So they're going to be motivated to get you piercing as quickly as possible, no matter what your education level is, no matter what your skill level is. It'll be a situation in most cases, which I would encounter around this area, where they came in to apprentice, got the job, they're getting paid this much an hour, and within a day or two, they're basically piercing everybody that comes through the door. So it's not really a proper apprenticeship. It's not really a proper education. So that's another thing you need to consider, and you need to talk to them about what their process is. And number 6, as an hourly employee, they can always keep you just below full time and screw you out of benefits. So you may not get any benefits at all. It's just part of the American adventure. They tend to do this thing. Major corporations are notorious for this, of keeping you just below the requirement for those benefits to make sure they don't have to pay anything out. So that is a possibility too. So always keep that in mind. Till next time, here's hoping all your piercing skill with ease and without a single issue. And if you're in the Des Moines, Iowa area, I hope to see you for your body piercing needs in the future. Have a good day, everybody. Take care. Check out this other video.